Hi there, and today we're going to talk about blame. The other day we talked about this guilt, and blame is another one that kind of falls into all of this. As we go through our lives, we struggle with many responsibilities from both external and internal sources. We take on the guilt and the culpabilities, which causes us to encounter roadblocks to stop us from living to our fullest potential. Blame is one of the things that can make us unlikable, resentful, and restless. Just mentioning the word blame, I am sure a thought popped into your head, such as the time when you were blamed for something that you were still frustrated with, or something you have blamed somebody else for. Blame is one of those interesting words, because the moment that you say it, your mind automatically clicks in. It automatically starts going to, oh, well, there was this time, when this person did this, or there was this time when I was blamed for this. It automatically, which tells you how quick that is right under the surface. Most of the time, you're not even realizing it's there. But once you hear the word, buddy, it just jumps right up. It's like right to attention, and it's like, hey, I got a story. And that tells you that's something that needs to be dealt with, because it's not readily right there at that surface, but it sure does like to come up as soon as its name is mentioned. Take a moment and answer some of these questions. What have you been blamed for? It's impossible to have lived a life and not to have been blamed for something, whether it was justified or not. Everybody has blamed somebody for something and been blamed by someone for something. And the question comes down to is, did you do it? And how did that make you feel? Have you ever blamed somebody, and did it make things better or worse? And think about, do you think there was a better way to handle the situation rather than placing blame? And of course there is. There always is. See, blame is a negative emotion, and blame only serves in one purpose. It's a form of manipulation. It's there to be able to assign culpability to somebody else while freeing yourself from any wrongdoing. And this is never the way to be. Do you think that it makes things better or worse? Well, it's never going to make it better. Let's get a couple things straight. There's no amount of blame you can assign to somebody to fix a situation. Never. It is never going to make that person more willing to be friendly to you or to do better in the future. What you've done is you've added guilt onto them and you have shamed them. And nobody works well under those kind of circumstances. You always want to build a bridge, never build a wall. Blame builds walls. And each time you blame somebody, you just put another brick there. And you don't want to be that kind of person. You don't want to be the kind of person that is going to blame somebody else or make somebody else feel bad for something. You want to always be able to lift somebody up, help them see a better way. Always. Sometimes we are blamed for our shortcomings or our behaviors. Blame has a way of making us feel small or insignificant when it comes from a loved one or a boss. We also assign blame to those who we feel did something wrong. It stems from our conditioned behaviors and irrational beliefs. Blame can be like a tree with many branches filled with leaves where we try to find shade and hide. Stop and think about that for a moment, because that's really what blame is all about. Most of the time when we're blaming somebody else, what we're really trying to do is to hide our own failures. We're trying to shift that over to them. Look at them, look what they did, but don't pay attention to me. When someone does something that doesn't line up with your view of the world and how things should work, we blame them for the things that they did or said. We hold our thoughts of right and wrong against them. We judge them and condemn them for their actions and none of this is rational, and it limits us. When you blame others, it only stops you. No amount of blaming will ever make you right. Keep that in mind. It's never going to make you right. It just makes you somebody that has to blame somebody else. Keep that in mind, because we've talked a lot about negative thoughts and things like that. And one of the things that we've gone over is the language that you are using. And blame is one of those pieces of your language that you need to eradicate. You need to take it out. You need to not allow that to be an emotional state or a behavior of your actions. You need to never blame somebody else for something, right or wrong. It's never going to make you right to prove somebody else was wrong. Things like this, they only hold you back. And you're never going to be able to move forward. You're never going to vibrate at that higher frequency. Stop and think about this for a minute. It is an obstacle that is so subtle that we don't even see it as an obstacle. We call it as freeing, as being able to feel better than somebody else by shifting the responsibility or guilt to another. But this action and thoughts limit your ability to see clearly how differences can be good. It challenges you to take on a different view. It challenges you to take a better look at the way you are handling or have handled a situation. We all know the saying, walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. That person made a choice. They decided to do something different from the way that you would have done it. That doesn't make it right, and it doesn't make it wrong. It shows that there is more than one path to take. Everything that is put in front of you is a learning experience. Understand this makes you able to see yourself more clearly and see how the world works. And this is so true. Just because somebody does something different than the way that you would have done it does not make it right or wrong, but it definitely shows you all of the different paths. There are so many different paths to be able to achieve goals, but so many of us only think of the one path, and that's the one path that we can think of. And therefore we limit ourselves from being able to learn and to be able to grow. This, once again, is one of these obstacles that is a tool for you to learn and to grow from. It is there to be able to challenge you to see that there is more than one way or a one path in order to be able to achieve a goal. And that's one of the things that you need to start asking yourself when you go to blame somebody for something. Try to look at it from their viewpoint. See why it is that they did that. And see if you can figure out, was that a viable path? And even if you don't believe it to be one, even if they ended up not succeeding at what they were doing, and it was a failure. We talked about failure. Failure is just the road to success. Don't you want to be on that road? So what you need to start doing is you need to start looking at this and seeing how many other ways and how many other paths are there that can be taken before you ever try to blame somebody. So the next time blame comes up in your life, ask yourself, what's another way that I can do this? And if you can't think of another way, you are limited. You need to start expanding your views in order to be able to find another way. Think about this. Pick a spot you want to drive to. There's not one way to get there. There's multiple ways, multiple roads. So don't ever limit yourself. We always want to be growing, learning, and expanding. And that comes from not blaming others. Blaming another individual doesn't make you a better person. It just makes you one who has to focus on another's perceived short-sightedness. It makes you someone who has to feed their ego by knocking down somebody else. Don't blame them and hold them culpable for their lack of responsibility. Sometimes they may deserve the blame and may be guilty. You don't want to be a person that has to label somebody else for their limitations. They just have never learned the things that you're learning here and the things that we want to do, which is we always want to find another way. We always want to be on a path. We always want to be learning. We always want to be growing. Understand that, there are going to be times that you are going to make mistakes and that you're going to have shortcomings. There are going to be times you're not going to be able to find another path. When there will be times you won't be able to find that other path, and that's okay. Because as long as you're questioning, that is opening you up. And that's really one of the keys. Always be open. See, a person that is completely open to ideas, to thoughts, to the idea of growing and learning, they never assign blame to somebody else. Because they're always going to think about that other person and try to see what it is that they can learn from that person. Remember, blaming builds walls. We want to build bridges. We want to be the best captain that we can be. We want to always be able to sail that ship in the best seas possible. And let me ask you this other question here. The times that you have been blamed for something, how did it make you feel? I can tell you how it probably made you feel. It probably made you feel small, insignificant, useless, not enough. There we are right again, back with that not enough. And that just keeps going back down. So why in the world would you ever want to make somebody else feel that way? The way that it makes you feel. You know how destructive that is. You want to always lift somebody up. Bring them out of the shade. Bring them into the light. And keep this in mind. No matter what, you can't live a life of freedom when you're in the state of blaming. See, when you let go, you will never need it again. You will see those around you who use blame to hide. You will see how it holds them back, just like you have been held back. It is like walking out of the darkness into the light. Feel the sunshine. Forgiveness is the key to most everything you encounter in your life. Forgiveness for yourself and for others. Trust in life that it will be delivered. So, the homework for this week is to think about the times that you were blamed for something. And I want you to evaluate it. I want you to think about, were they right in trying to assign that blame to you? Was there a failure on your part? Now, we already discussed this. There is no right and wrong on this. But were they right in trying to assign that to you? And I want to think about the times when you've assigned blame to others. And can you think of another reason or another way? And so, until next time, take care.